Well, ladies and gentlemen, opening bids, opening offers. I'm in your hands. Where do we see the bidding start?
I'll bid $100,000.
$100,000, sir. You know this is a house, not a block of land.
What makes a good auctioneer?
Anyone can do it. I don't think it's a difficult job. There's a lot of different things involved, but mainly...
Usually the buyers are expecting the agent's not going to be the person who's then the auctioneer.
Yeah.
Does that benefit you as the salesperson, or it benefits the client?
I think it benefits all. I still get nervous. It's still, you know...
You still get nervous at an
Oh,
auction?
100%.
Okay.
Every time I walk into that backyard and it's 30, 40, 50 people there...
Yeah.
It hits me.
We've got a really experienced auctioneer right here who has done hundreds and hundreds of auctions now. And still, every time he gets up on stage, he's scared and fearful, but he pushes through that. It's a real skill, and a lot of people would look at an auctioneer and just go, wow, you know, I could never do that. So you've mastered the market, but now you want to start winning for yourself. I'm Daniel Lee. Some know me as real estate's funny guy, but in the Get Keen podcast, we get down to business and explore what gets people really keen, how to get the most out of your real estate career, how to build a successful business and live the best life for yourself and your family. We'll uncover how to be hugely successful in real estate, setting you up to get keen and make the next big move in your life. All right, welcome back to Get Keen. We got a special guest for you today. We have Plum Properties, original and world-class auctioneer Tyler Bean with us. Tyler, yeah, crowd going wild, absolutely. And if you're an aspiring auctioneer, you're an agent, you want to know a little bit more about what it takes to be an auctioneer, what makes a good auctioneer, how much you can make as an auctioneer, this podcast is for you. So listen in. Tyler has been part of Plum Property now for about 8 years. He's one of the first agents that joined the business when we were just a little itty bitty company trying to make a name for ourselves, and he really has blown up the scene in our area with his mastery, his skills as an auctioneer. We're blessed in our business to have an exclusive auctioneer with us, Tyler, and he's going to talk today a little bit about how he got into it, what makes a great auctioneer, and how much you can make as an auctioneer. So, Tyler, welcome to the Get Keen podcast for your first episode.
Thanks, Dan. What an intro.
Mate. Yeah, well, you deserve it, man. You've done so much for this business, and you really are a master at auctioneering. Most companies don't have their own auctioneer. We're blessed to have you on our team calling all of our auctions, and it's always fun watching you at work because you're just so good at getting the crowd in your fingertips and just totally controlling the environment. But for those that are listening, let's get right into the nuts and bolts of it. Tyler, you've been in real estate for about 20 years now, and when did you actually decide you wanted to be an auctioneer?
Well, if I could go back, it was actually before I got into real estate altogether.
Yeah.
So I was probably about 15, 16. I had my stepdad's uncle who came to town. They had a shed that was full of machinery and all this stuff, and they did a chattel auction for all this stuff. And I was watching this guy auction off all this machinery, and I thought, what a gig. That's really cool.
Yeah.
And that sat with me for a while, and then a few years passed, got into real estate, then I wanted to become an auctioneer. So it was actually a long time ago.
Yeah. And so how did you actually, what do you have to do to be an auctioneer?
Okay.
Because to be a salesperson, all you got to do is go out and do the 3-day course.
Yes.
Might be 5 days now, I don't know, but you pay some money, you do a couple of multiple choice questions, and all of a sudden, voila, you're a real estate agent. What do you have to do to be an auctioneer?
Well, back in the day, and I think it's still the same. You've got to do your course first, which is usually about a week. Might be a bit longer now, but then you've got to call 5 auctions with a licensed auctioneer. And they've got a ticket off saying you did all the right things, and then you get your license.
Okay, so you kind of get your L's and then your P plates.
Correct.
So who do you do those auctions with?
So that was up when I started my career in Rockhampton. It was a gentleman by the name of Richard Thompson, who was sort of like property but also cattle auctioneer, which was a bit of a strange
But what
one.
about someone who wants to be an auctioneer? So they go to a course, and then where would they go to do the auctions with someone else?
You'd have to ask an auctioneer.
Oh, okay. So you've got to actually find some auctioneer and say, hey, I
want to get my license. Will you babysit me while I call these auctions?
And do you pay them?
Well, I guess you could. Or they could just do it as a favour if they're nice enough.
But you've kind of got to go figure this out yourself?
Yes.
Wow, okay.
Yeah.
They don't provide you, the course doesn't provide you, go to this guy's auction or call it.
Not as far as I know.
You just got to go and proactively get out there.
Correct.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
How about that? So if you really want to be an auctioneer, you've got to get your skates on and organize yourself. So you do that, you do the 5 courses, and then what is it? What are the fees to be an auctioneer? Because there's a license, right?
There is a license, so it's probably about $900 a year.
$900 a year.
Yeah, so not too much, or I think you can pay $1,500 for 3 years or something like that.
Okay. And then how much can you make as an auctioneer? Because I bet you a lot of people look at an auctioneer and they're like, wow, they get paid, I don't know, like auctioneer fees sit between sort of $500 and $1,000.
Yeah.
And it seems like a lot. Seems like you could make quite a lot of money. How much money could you make as an auctioneer?
Well, I probably call, 3 to 4 auctions a month.
Mm-hmm.
So not heaps, not as much as solo auctioneers who will do, 3 to 4 every Saturday or more, right? So, my fee is $650. So whatever that is throughout the year, I think it's, between $10,000 and $30,000 depending on how many auctions I get.
Yeah, okay, but you're not full-time here.
No.
For everyone listening, Tyler is a full-time real estate agent, and he's also got his auctioneer's license. So his main gig is actually selling the property, but then he also does the auctions for this whole company.
Yeah.
So, so if you were a full-time auctioneer, then you're paying $900 a year for your license. So you got to do a couple of auctions just to pay that back, and then. But auctions are generally on Saturdays. So how would an auctioneer make more money?
Well, if you're going to be a solo auctioneer, you could probably try and find some offices who would do Wednesday in-rooms auctions or something like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess a bit different for me because I do full-time sales and auctioneering on the side. So
that's probably the way to go for a lot of auctioneers, I think. Most auctioneers are sales agents as well.
Yeah.
So when you became an auctioneer, because you're quite, I'd say you're an extroverted guy. I'm not sure if you were always like that, but since I've known you, but you've always been an auctioneer. But I can gather that by being an auctioneer and having to stand up in front of large crowds and sort of control the room, it's pretty much public speaking.
Yeah.
Yeah. How did that help you as a person?
Well, I guess I was always extroverted because, in real estate, you kind of have to be. But when I think my social speaking skills improved once I became an auctioneer, got a bit more confident talking in front of people. Like beforehand, talking in front of 10 people, I'd get nervous, but now I still get nervous. It's still,
You still get nervous at an
Oh,
auction?
100%.
Okay.
The butterflies go nuts.
Okay, cool.
Every time I walk into that backyard and it's 30, 40, 50 people there,
Yeah.
it hits me, but then it gets exciting and everything.
That's interesting to hear because you look so confident when you're up there. Like this does not bother you at all.
It's all an act.
It's all an act. Well, that's really important for young aspiring auctioneers out there. Is that probably what holds some of you back is just that fear of getting up in front of a crowd and, presenting and being scared of making a mistake. Well, we've got a really experienced auctioneer right here who has done probably hundreds and hundreds of auctions now. And still every time he gets up on stage, he's scared and fearful, but he pushes through that because he knows it's going to be all right in the end, and he knows that that's what he wants to do, and he's amazingly good at it. So, don't let that stop you from doing something that you really love. That fear that holds you back from it's what stops people from getting out there and doing stuff like creating a profile on social media. They're always worried about making a mistake or what other people think. Don't worry about that shit. Go and do what you want to do. If you aspire to be an auctioneer, go and get your license. Give it a effing crack, all right? So, Tyler, as well, tell me more about this. What makes a great auctioneer? Because when you're up in front of the crowd, man, it's so funny. I love watching it. I'm usually working the crowd, but you should see Tyler in action, man. He's just got the crowd melting in his hands. He's making jokes. It's a really light kind of, I love how you do it because it's not serious, and buying a house at auction is a serious thing, and the whole crowd is probably nervous. The buyers are nervous. And the way you do it, you just make it so relaxing and comfortable and fun. Is that that's your style, or is that?
Yeah, I always watch other auctioneers.
Yeah.
And I kind of feel like I put my buyer hat on, and if I was in that crowd, how would I feel?
Yeah.
And there's some auctioneers where I'd be so uncomfortable. I wouldn't want to bid. So I kind of feel like if I can get the buyers comfortable, make it yes, they're going to be nervous. It's a big deal. They're buying a huge asset. But it's also should be fun.
Yeah.
It could be the next 10 or 20 years of their life. Let's make it enjoyable. So I always try and get them comfortable, but give them the opportunity to have fun. Because it just works so much better if we do that.
It does, doesn't it? You got to break down the nerves of the crowd. You know, it's always like that first bid is the hardest to get.
Oh, yeah.
Always the first person to bid is hardest to get the first bid out of someone, but then it goes and people relax and
starts rolling.
You've got to relax the crowd. You're really, really good at that. So, you know, I love it how you crack jokes. You always you always make the same jokes. You need some new ones, by the way. But that works really, really well. Hey guys, just quickly, if you're loving this content and you're a real estate agent that's already thinking what it might be like to have your own real estate business and brand, then check out the show notes. There'll be a link to our Plum Partners website where you can leave an inquiry and me or one of my team members will reach out. We help agents to create, run, and grow their own real estate business and brand so they can earn more and set up a better future for themselves. So get keen, get in touch. Now let's get back to the episode. What makes a good auctioneer?
Well, I think anyone can do it. And it's not, I don't think it's a difficult job. I don't think it's hard. I think you need to have a lot of confidence. You need to be comfortable talking in front of people. But I just think you need to have the ability to identify, you know, what's going to happen based on the amount of bidders you've got. You need to know the numbers. You need to know where the price feedback is and all this sort of stuff. So it kind of, there's a lot of different things involved. But I think mainly you got to have a bit of confidence when you're doing it with the buyers and just get them all on your side.
Yeah. But it can be fake confidence.
Yes.
You say because...
Well, not fake confidence. I'd say the confidence kicks in once I go out there and start.
Yeah,
talking.
okay. So you're nervous before you go out there, but once you start, you're in the rhythm. You've got it. Yeah, it's the usual thing, you know, when you're getting up in front of people. It's always nervous getting up on stage. But then once you start talking, it all disappears.
It all disappears.
So do you think that it gives you an advantage over like other agents who, like if you're going up for a listing because you're a real estate agent, do you think it gives you an advantage being able to sit in front of a client and say, hey, let's, you know, auction your property. And by the way, I'm your auctioneer.
100%.
Yeah, okay.
100%.
Yeah.
Well, you know, I don't think it's too common, agent and auctioneer. I think, well, it might have been, you know, a decade or so ago, but now I don't think it's too common. But I think it gives me a bit of an edge because when I'm sitting down in front of the clients, going through all the methods of sale, when it comes to auction, I tell them that I'm an auctioneer and I show them some videos, I show them some of the results, and I feel like there's a lot more trust in what I'm saying because I'm an auctioneer.
Absolutely. I think it makes you more of an authority as well, you know. It's a real skill, and a lot of people would look at an auctioneer and just go, wow, you know, I could never do that. Yeah. And so I think it really puts you on a bit of a pedestal over other agents. Like this guy's got some extra skill that everyone else doesn't have.
Yeah.
And it gives you an edge. You know, like at Eric, we all saw at Eric, Ryan Serhan, he pointed out that you've got to find your edge. And that's what you get. You have something that no other agent has. When I used to sell property, my edge was that I did, you know, Facebook entertaining videos and Instagram videos, which would go viral, and I could use that and say that I can find more buyers because I do videos that go viral, and therefore I'm going to capture a bigger audience, and some of those will end up seeing the property, and that will lead to more offers and a higher price. So that was an edge that I could use, and this is an edge you can use. So for those guys out there that are going to be auctioneers, you can also be a great agent, and that can give you an edge over other agents that are out there, right? Yeah. So that's really awesome. So how about this? What about when you're selling a house, right? And you know, you're talking to the buyers, so you're taking the buyers through the home, and then, you know, you're telling them about the auction on the weekend. Usually the buyers are expecting that the agent's not going to be the person who's then the auctioneer. Yeah. Is that, because that's a bit different. Does that benefit you as the salesperson, or is it, do you think it benefits the client? Like, knowing the agent and then the agent's the auctioneer?
I think it benefits all. Yeah, because, well, for me, I'm meeting every single buyer throughout the campaign. Yeah. And when on Saturday, I know exactly who I'm working with. Yeah. I know what they offered before auction, what they love about the property, so I can kind of formulate my whole call based on that. Whether this buyer's here for the school catchments or anything like that. Personality types, I kind of identify that as well, whether I should be, you know, a bit pushy or if I should pull in a particular way. Yeah. So that's a big benefit. But I think the buyers, when I meet them, I explain to them I'm the auctioneer on Saturday, whatever it is. So
that would give a massive advantage actually, because
so.
normally they're just rocking up and they've never seen the auctioneer. He's just a random person that's rocked up to call the auction.
Yeah.
Whereas during the process, you can have those chats when you're talking with the buyer, and you know how you got to set your auction up correctly for success.
Yeah.
You've got to get these buyers prepared. You get the chance to be not only the agent, but say, I'm going to be up there auctioneering. This is what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
And if this type of thing happens up there, you can be sure that this kind of thing's going to happen. You can kind of
well, I guess I give them the opportunity for me to explain the whole auction day from start to finish.
Yeah.
They'll always say, yes, please, run through it with me. Because even if they've been through the process, they want to know what I'm going to do from start to finish, right? So I'll explain the process. I'll try and get any questions out of them that I can. So they're as prepared as they can be on Saturday. But then I kind of go a little bit step further and I offer to everybody some strategies on bidding, because they're all so nervous getting there. And if I can try and encourage them to have that opening bid, or give them a few tricks and tips on bidding.
Oh, yeah. Let's hear about some of those. So tips and tricks that you would tell the buyers like at the auction to encourage them to bid. What would you say?
Well, it's always the same thing. It's, if you don't bid, you don't buy. That's the number one rule.
Okay.
So, and there's always, buyers who will show up and they'll just watch everybody else and just wait until, the right moment or something. I always encourage them to, not be aggressive with bidding, but just be forward. Don't be shy about it. I always ask if they're comfortable doing the opening bid, because that is the hardest bid to get.
Yeah.
And usually after that, it kind of rolls on from there. And I try and set it up so I have these conversations with all the buyers. And when I do the opening bids, opening offers, have one or two paddles go up at the same time.
Yeah. That's one of the best things you can do to start the auction day is those times that we forget to do it.
Yeah.
And then we're like, I forgot to organize my opening bid. And you go, opening bid and offer. And then it's just silence. And it's just that awkward silence. We're like, oh, God,
deafening.
I didn't set that up properly. It happens every now and again.
Yeah.
But yeah, we always try and set it up to get that, go around to each bidder and say, hey, do you want to, it's good luck to be the opening bidder. You want to be the opening bidder, and just find that person that's willing to go, yeah, all right.
Yeah.
That's a really good idea, because it's great to start the auction. Soon as you say opening bid, someone bids.
Yeah.
It's like the pressure just releases in this blown up tire all of a sudden, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Let's talk about some tips for new guys. Like, what should they be doing? I mean, you can't just go and do the course and then all of a sudden have your ticket and be this great auctioneer. It takes time, practice to become great. What sort of practice and things should a young aspiring auctioneer be doing?
Yeah, sure. Well, I did a lot of training at the start.
What sort?
Yeah. I did the Justin Nickerson auctioneering course.
He's good.
He's awesome. He's awesome. He's the GOAT.
He is the GOAT.
He taught me everything.
Okay.
Right? Him and a few others.
Yeah.
But I would say definitely do the training. A lot of auctioneer companies do the courses and they have their training events every year. To really push up your confidence levels, I'd say do a competition, compete in a auctioneering competition. That just, gets you to try it out.
Yeah, and you're up against the best of the best.
100%.
So you've got to, practice. And so is there a lot of like standing in front of the mirror, calling auctions?
A lot of practice. I don't think I did it in front of the mirror, but definitely whenever I had some spare time driving in the car, I would just auction.
Yeah, okay.
And at the very start, when I first started auctioneering for Plum, I played a game where if I was on the highway, stuck in traffic, it would be every white car that went past was a $10,000 increment. Okay. Every blue car was a $20,000. And I'd practice.
Yeah, I think that's probably one of the hardest things. Like, every now and again when you've got bids coming from everywhere and you stumble sometimes, like it's only natural. Like
all
when
the time.
There's 2,500, 5,000, 1,500, and you're up in the millions, and you have to repeat every number. That can be really hard. Like, that must be something you have to practice.
That's probably the main thing you got to practice.
Okay.
Yeah.
Practicing the numbers.
It's basic addition, right?
Yeah.
But it's tricky when you're doing it because, you've got other things happening at the same time.
Yeah.
You've got people moving and you think it's a bid and, somebody's, snickering down the corner. You got to try and block that out, and all these other things happening. So that's the tough part.
That's the hardest thing. It's not the actual addition. It's like knowing what number you're at.
Yes.
So then like you're at a number and then stuff's happening and then someone calls out something else and then all of a sudden you've forgotten the number you're at. And
it happens.
It happens. I've seen it happen.
Yeah.
Cool. Let's talk about some horror stories because, everyone's always talking about how successful their auction is. Who cares? We want to talk about... let's talk about some of the moments because, you've called hundreds of auctions. We've been together and done so many. And most of the time, it's all good, right? But every now and again, something doesn't go to plan. And I want to hear what your biggest horror story is for an auction ever. And this isn't to put people off auction. It's a great strategy if you're thinking of selling. But, what is a horror story for you that you can remember?
Oh, there's a few.
Okay, well, tell us one.
Well, I would say one that sticks in my mind. This was probably, 7-8 years ago. It was a house we were auctioning, did a full campaign, the works with the marketing.
Yeah.
Decent buyers through. The market was a little bit different to what it is now. But come auction day, there was myself, the seller, a next door neighbour, no buyers showed up, and the auctioneer. And the owner and the next door neighbour didn't get along. So he was just coming for a sticky beak, being nosy, but came and, realised it was just the owner there. They were having a few heated words to each other, and then we kind of just decided, all right, this isn't an auction today. So that was canned. That's probably, one of the horror stories that I remember.
That wasn't too bad.
No, you got one, don't you?
Yeah, you remember this one we did in Corinda, and there was about 5 of us there, and you had that new assistant, right? I won't mention his name, good kid, but he was scribing. So what a scriber is it's someone who stands there and does the numbers, keeps track of the number that the auctioneer's at, and if the auctioneer ever gets stuck or he forgets where he's at, the scriber can quickly say, oh, we're at this number, right? So it's someone there to back up. But we hadn't really told him what to do. Well, we gave him the board, said, you're scribing, and he was new. And he was like, all right. And he gets up there, and we get halfway through the auction, and I'm working the crowd, and Tyler forgot what number he was at. And he got distracted because someone called out something, and they said, what number are we at? And then he said, we're at... what number are we at? And then he goes, Dan, what number are we at? And I turn around and I go, I don't know what number we're at. And then we said, the scriber, ask the scriber. So I shouldn't say his name, but just called him out.
That's all right.
What number are we at? And he's like,
yeah, he just, and then it was very competitive though in saying that. So it was a lot of back and forth.
But then we had people from the crowd shouting out, you're at this number. And then someone else was like, no, you're not. You're at this number. And then we're all just standing there in total confusion looking like an absolute bunch of idiots.
With about 80 to 100 people surrounding us.
Oh, God.
Yeah,
that was so embarrassing.
That was one of the worst ones.
That was a horror story. Yeah. So a lesson from that day is, number one, make sure the person scribing knows what they're doing. And that was our fault because, that the guy was new and he'd never done it before. And we just gave him the board and didn't teach him what to do. So that was a lesson for it. That's never happened ever again. And another lesson is just, probably for you as the auctioneer is to not solely rely on that guy.
Correct.
Make sure that whoever other agent is with you, like it's their job as well to have your back.
Know where we are.
A situation like that was to occur. So what I do now is I always have my phone on with the calculator. And I'm switching up the numbers as it goes.
Yeah, you're right. Like my lesson was, focus on the numbers a bit more. Don't rely on the scribe or you or anybody else out there. And I think it was from there you gave me a bit of a nudge on the shoulder and said, hey, that was a bit average, pick up your game a bit. And I did. I practiced my numbers better. I focused on that quite a bit. So it still happens though.
Not that bad.
Not
it
that
happens
bad.
that you stumble every now and again, but it's only natural. And I don't think there's an auctioneer out there that doesn't stumble sometimes.
No.
All right, to finish off, I just want to ask about like the best auctioneers and the juniors and less experienced auctioneers. What are the best auctioneers doing out there to be the best at their game?
In terms of like the best auctioneers, The things that I find that they do is that they'll be confident. That's the one thing. It's super confidence, but they know how to overcome objections. You know, like sometimes there will be somebody who will come in with a bid that's a $500 bid when you roll in at 50,000, and they'll overcome that objection pretty quickly and try and encourage them. No, we're not taking that. We're doing this. I think being able to keep momentum and flow at the same time, that's quite tricky, but all the good ones do that really well because the momentum kind of, if you keep the momentum up, you're going to get the best price. So I'd say that's about it.
And that really would probably come with practice more than anything. I just don't see that being something that you're just going to get straight away.
You're not born with that.
The more you do, the better you're going to get. And what about the newer auctioneers that you've seen on the scene? Where are some of the things that you have seen that they could really use improvement?
Sure. So any new auctioneers jumping into the game, if I'm watching and I try and identify what they're doing wrong, I guess some are a bit aggressive.
Okay.
When they're calling an auction.
Yeah.
And it shouldn't be an aggressive thing. It should be an enjoyable thing.
You mean how aggressive? Like when someone makes a bid, they're like, "That's stupid," or what?
Yeah, I've seen some.
Oh, like really?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. I guess they're a bit loud and kind of I get boisterous in a way that doesn't make the buyer feel comfortable.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Apart from that, I guess. I always say confidence. You see some new auctioneers enter the industry and they go out there and you can tell they're a bucket of nerves. Their paper's shaking and that. But that, again, comes with practice.
Yeah.
I was nervous. I was so nervous at the start.
Yeah.
But practice makes perfect.
Yeah, absolutely it does. In every facet, if you're going to be the master of your game. They say 10,000 hours to be the best in your industry. So... Have you done 10,000 hours yet?
No way.
He's getting there. Well, all right, guys. So there we have it. That's all for today with Tyler Bean, exceptional master at his domain in auctioneering. If anyone out there is interested in getting into auctioneering, finding out a little bit more about what it takes to be an auctioneer and whether it's something you want to get into, I'm going to leave a link to Tyler's Instagram, and you can DM him. And he'll be happy to reply to you and tell you what it takes to be an auctioneer. Thank you so much for joining us, Tyler. And guests, we'll see you on the next episode. Let's get keen.
Yeah.
Thank you for tuning into the Get Keen podcast. If today's episode inspired you, please show your support with a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. And make sure you subscribe on your favorite platform too. Don't stop there. Join our community of forward thinkers by connecting with me on social media at Dan_Lee_Plum. I'm looking forward to exploring more strategies and insights with you on your journey to the top. Until next time, keep getting keen.